So this is the video to explain the Sudoku medium version of the Sudoku assignment. So if that's the one that you chose. So open up the Sudoku medium.py file in whatever editor you're using. And let me just go over this file and what you're going to need to do. So first thing you should notice is that this is the entry point. If name equals main, show menu. So this is going to be the function that's going to be called when you run this file. So show menu is the entry point, and what you'll do here is you'll just need to loop forever until somebody puts a valid menu item. So if they put Q, then you'll quit. And I don't know that I've got, so you'll need some, def quit, and let me just see here. Yeah. So what I did in mine is I just had a name equals none and outcome equals none. And then I, did all my quit logic, and I'm not going to give it to you, but that's what I would do there. So in show menu, that's what you'll do is you'll check to see if they pushed Q and you'll quit. If they didn't push a valid menu item at all, you'll just repeat the menu. You'll tell them, hey, sorry, I don't know what that is, and then repeat the menu. If they chose to list scores, then you'll call this function, and the list scores function is going to need a name. And so when they say to list scores, then you'll first have to ask whose scores do you want to see, and then they'll tell you, and you'll pass that name to this function. And then what this function does is it reads the Sudoku scores.txt file here, and it once it gets all of the lines, it passes those lines to this parse results function, which can then determine whether or not it will actually aggregate all of the wins and losses for every user in the file. So let me show you what that file looks like. Sudoku scores. So I've got just a name and then a result, and that's what you'll do. So when you write to this file, that's what it'll look like, and then when you read from it, this is what it looks like. So the parse results function will return a dictionary. The key in the dictionary is the name of the user, and then the the value of the dictionary is a tuple of wins and losses. So this function will aggregate all of that for you, and then it will return the dictionary. And so then you'll just have to look up in the dictionary and see if that user that they gave you is in that dictionary. If it's not, you'll say, hey, sorry, there are no scores for that guy or girl. And then if they are in there, then you will show their wins and losses. If they chose to play a new game, then you'll hit this function, and then you'll do that logic, and I should explain a little bit about what that's doing. So in the new game function, you should get a board from the Sudoku helper. So that's what this is. So you'll do something like boards equals Sudoku dot get boards, and that's going to return a list of board items, board elements, and which is really a 3D list. So it's a list of boards, and what a board is just a 2D list of numbers. So that's what this will give you, and you will have to select randomly the board that you want to use. So you'll need to use the random module for this. Then you'll keep prompting for the name that they want to play as. So if they put in like an empty string, then you should ask again, because we can't handle empty strings. Does that make sense? So if somebody put in, hey, what name as your prompt, and then they put in nothing and just pressed enter, then we got to ask again. So you're going to have to handle that. You're going to have to handle when they don't give you anything. And then once you've got a name, then you'll call this play game function. And this really is where the bulk of your logic is going to be. So this again is just going to be a while loop that goes forever until they have a valid, until they've quit or they have won. So those are your ending conditions. But really what I would suggest you do is just do a while true, and then at the end of every loop you'll check to see if they either quit or won. So it's really not too bad. I say that's the bulk of the logic, but it's really just because that's the most. I mean, it's probably like 20 lines of code. Yeah, in my program. It might be more in yours or it might be less, but that's what it is in mine. So yeah, you'll ask for. So when we played the game, you'll notice that we printed out Sudoku as the title, and then we printed out the board. Those are both functions that you get in this Sudoku helper. So you'll print Sudoku and then you'll print the board, and you get the board right here. So you'll just print them both out. Then you want to prompt the user for what they want to do. So this is where they're going to actually play. And so then when they whatever your prompt is, and you saw what mine is, it's a column and a row and then a value. So they'll give you a column and a row and a value, and then you'll use this Sudoku helper function again to update the board. And this function takes, let's see, the board, a column, a row, and a value. And then when it's all done, it returns a new board. Okay, so you'll have to do something like that in here. And then once they update the board, that's when you're going to want to check to make sure, because it might be, if it's invalid, if they gave you an invalid input, then new board will be none. And so you don't want to make your current board this new board unless it's valid. So you don't want board to equal new board unless it's valid. So you'll have to make sure that it's valid, and if it is valid, you'll try to see if it's a win. So you'll do sudoku.detect win with the board, and that returns a true or a false. And if it is true, then you'll just print out victory, which is also a provided function, and then you'll quit. So that's what the play game function does. And then when they quit, whenever somebody does, and I showed you at the beginning, some def quit function. So whenever somebody does that, you'll need to write out the outcome of the game. So in play game, if they win, you're going to quit, and you're going to give them, and you're going to write out the outcome with the name of the user and whether they and that they won. If they quit, you'll give the name and that they lost. So that's what write outcome does, and it's actually really easy. It's really just you saw how we write to files. It's really just a with open Sudoku scores.txt as f dot write, and you'll just write the new line, write line. So that's pretty easy. But the one trick that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to write out in append mode, not write mode. If you write out in write mode, you're going to overwrite every single time they play a game, and then that kind of defeats the purpose of keeping their scores in a file. So hopefully that's really helpful. This is not a huge step above just doing it the hard way, but I did provide you with a framework here with function names. So hopefully that's really helpful, and let me know if you need anything.